These series of videos are demonstrating how to automate economic policy through code. A link to the GitHub repository is included in the video description. In the previous video, we toured the services to learn how to create a transaction request, approve a request to create a transaction, and automate the fulfillment of our financial commitments. In this one, we'll briefly tour the GraphQL service code, learn the commands to develop it, and test its behavior. As of February 2023, you may navigate to the GitHub page and click a button to open a development environment, or click to code. You can click this one, or you can click that one. Open your development environment. Wait for the browser IDE to finish loading. You'll know loading's finished when the buttons for the extensions appear, and the post create command completes. Docker Compose Up is run for you at the start, and you may view the services running in Compose with Docker PS. Now let's refresh our memory of architecture. When the app is deployed to the cloud, there's a client served by a bucket and cache. Web client use is optional. It only demonstrates how to use the backend. GraphQL runs in Lambda, and it's invoked by API Gateway, which handles authentication through Cognito. GraphQL sits in front of these 8 other services. And with the exception of GraphQL, all these services use Postgres and RDS to store or fetch data. There's no cache yet, or key value store. That'll get added later. When running locally, the client, GraphQL, the services, and Postgres all run in containers. Click the Ports tab in the browser IDE. Click the client address. You can see a web client served by Nginx. Return to the editor. Now click the GraphQL address and you'll get the playground. We don't need the playground. The IDE in the browser has this extension for testing requests. We'll use that to keep from moving outside the editor. Click on the Env tab. Note the variable assignments. Click on the Collections tab and expand the GraphQL collection. Pick a request. We'll use rules. Here's the query and query variables. Hit send. There's your response from rules. It found a tax rule and added tax items for milk, bread, and eggs. Okay, where's the code? Open the File Explorer and navigate to Services GraphQL. Open server.go. That's the entry point. Here, a web server has started with 3 paths, the handlers, and some middleware. The first path is used by a Lambda web adapter to test if the web server is ready for a request. Only Lambda uses that. You don't use it locally. Then there's the /query path, which calls the GraphQL handler, and the root path, which returns the playground. These are all web server details. We'll move on to GraphQL code. Open the graph directory and you'll find the schema. Here's where you add your GraphQL types. When milk, bread, and eggs was sent as a request to rules, GraphQL was configured to expect a rules query in the form of transaction items and return a transaction with those items along with the rule-added items, or tax items. Now you're not hosting a GraphQL service with a schema file. You need code. And this GraphQL service uses a codegen library that generates that code after reading your schema definition. Let's prove that. Add a human type with first name and last name fields as string values. Now extend your query type to return a human. Then cd into services GraphQL and make gen. You'll notice a resolver added for you in the graph/schema.resolvers.go file. Now add the code to return a human to your newly generated human resolver. Okay, from project root, rebuild your GraphQL service with make rebuild GraphQL. Bring up the client extension in your editor. We'll just duplicate and modify this request. Rename it human. Add the query. Remove the variables. And hit send. GraphQL responded with your hard-coded John Smith. Now Docker logs mxf-graphql-1. And it said hello. That's it. Add schema. cd into that services GraphQL directory and run make gen. Add code to your newly code-generated resolver. Make rebuild GraphQL from project root to rebuild your GraphQL container. Then test it with a request. If you look at this rules resolver, you'll notice it's just passing the transaction items it was called with to this invoke rules pointer receiver. Query resolver embeds a pointer to resolver, which is defined in resolver.go. Open resolver.go and have a look at invoke rules. The transaction items are marshaled. An HTTP client is created pointing to the rules service URL. When these services move off Lambda, the HTTP clients will get replaced with gRPC because it's faster. Anyway, GraphQL posts the milk, bread, and eggs request to rules. Rules responds with taxes added to milk, bread, and eggs. And the items are returned together as a transaction. We know where to find GraphQL. We know how to develop it. And we know how to test it. In the next video, we'll move on to the rule service. You may subscribe, share, and contribute from the buttons and links in the description.